Welcome into Football and Other F Words. My name is Zach Lyons. You can follow me on Twitter at FWordsPod. You can read all my stuff at BroadwaySportsMedia.com, where you can go and get a yearly subscription for 40% off for $49.99 that gets you access to everything. We do live events. There is a new show, the Mike Herndon Show. I think they're going to name it later because that's kind of a lame title. It's like the Mike Herndon Show with Mike Herndon, starring Mike Herndon. That is for Broadway insiders only. That's probably worth the $4 or $5 it is every month to get in there and interact with that podcast and be able to hear that and the video feed. It's great. So BroadwaySportsMedia.com. I got an article out right now called The Zach Attack. It's my weekly article. Lie detector for Tennessee Titans week 1. I got all kinds of lies and truths that you could take away from week 1 because week 1 is a noted liar. And to help, kind of get through probably the depression that you're in, and we may not help. I have invited back Cory Curtis, who decided that maybe this podcast is pretty fun, and I didn't scare him away.
They said so many nice things about me on Twitter.
They did.
I mean, this is like people want to hear me rant. It's kind of nice.
It is. If it's nice to feel wanted and needed. That's why I am so vain and I do podcasts and do all these shows, because I like to hear myself talk and I like to hear people say they enjoy talking to me. I mean,
I look at myself on TV every day. So
yeah. I got overwhelming good responses. I got even text messages, Cory, about people from my friends who said that was the best episode since we used to get drunk on the show and just went crazy. This is like in the early stages of the show.
Well, I'm not going to disorgree with them. It's the best show I've ever heard.
There you go. It may be the only one, but it was the best one.
There's some truth to that.
We are brought to you by Jasper's in Nashville, the elevating sports bar. I mean, I know that a couple of listeners of the show came into town for this week 1 game, which I kind of feel sorry for them that this was the game they came to. But they did
at halftime. They had a great time.
Yeah, but they did enjoy Jasper's. They said it was great. So keep on, tell them the F Words, Football and Other F Words sent you. Make sure you throw our name out there so they know that you're coming because of us. And if you're in town, you don't have to wait for a game day to go. You can go anytime because they're open all the time. Well, they close, but anytime that you need food, they're open. And I would definitely go there for lunch any chance I get. Whenever I'm in Nashville and I have time to eat, that is the place that I go to. That's Jasper's in Nashville, right next to Vanderbilt. All right. Cory, it's the home opener. Ended up being the one of the more weird, depressing endings to a Titans game that I can remember. I hesitate to open up with this, but there is the hashtag Fire Downing movement on Twitter. It was trending, which is ridiculous. I am gonna say something that's kind of a hot take.
Okay.
I don't think that firing Todd Downing is necessarily going to solve everything that is wrong with this offense. What do you think about that statement?
I will completely agree, and for a number of reasons. Number one, the sample size is way, way, way too small. You're talking about making career-long, season-long decisions based on one football game. If we made all of our decisions based on one football game, week 1, when no one has played in the preseason, there's a lot of really bad decisions that would have been made over the years. You said it at the outset. Week 1 is a liar because we just don't know. Look, if week 1 was the end-all, be-all, Ken Wisenhunt would still be the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. And the last I saw, that guy was mowing his lawn at the Governor's Club. Okay? So he's not. All right, because week 1 is week 1.
So you don't take into account all last year, or do you chalk that up to, well, maybe it's some Todd Downing, maybe it's some of it is injuries and all this stuff?
Look, you can take last year into account. You can't ignore last year. You have to learn from last year. But this is a different team. You have Nicholas Petit-Frere. You have Aaron Brewer. You have Robert Woods. You have Austin Hooper. Even if they're not going to throw them the football, they're on the team.
I was about to say, are we sure they even exist?
And you have Traylon Burks. I mean, so, this team is much different. Okay, like because the team's best receiver just went for 10 for 155 for the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. So it is much different, and so there is a lot to be learned. And look, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, we may still be screaming at the top of our lungs, "Fire Todd Downing," but it'll be a much more educated decision at that point because right now it's just not because you don't. I mean, like everybody goes off about the end around to Chig Okonkwo and is all upset about it. Why not just give the ball to Derrick Henry? Blah 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 blah. Look, every play call is terrible when it doesn't work. All right, but here's the other thing: every play call is designed to work. All right. Now, sometimes the defense snuffs it out. Sometimes Taylor Lewan decides, hey, I'm just not going to block anybody on this play. All right. Sometimes those things happen and they're out of the offensive coordinator's hands. That's not absolving Todd Downing of everything. But I think this one game sample in the 2022 season is way too small. Look, if you wanted to fire somebody based on one game, Denver Broncos would be looking for a new head coach today. All right. And I don't think that they are. Perhaps they should. It's too small of a sample. And we also still don't know entirely what this team wants to do, except hand the ball to Derrick Henry on first down.
I think what people think is that, okay, well, everything that goes wrong on offense is automatically Todd Downing's fault. But what they forget is that Todd Downing is running the offense under the philosophy set by Mike Vrabel.
Well, exactly. He doesn't make the game plan by himself.
Right. Mike Vrabel has his hands in everything. It works great on the defense. He has good insight on what the opposing defense may look to throw at the offense. But coming up with and practicing these plays, this Chig Okonkwo play is like the Luke Stalker fullback or Luke Stalker handoff play in 2018. It's like the Aaron Brewer pass play in Cleveland in 2019. The only constant in all these gimmicky kind of plays that fail is that the Titans lose the game and Mike Vrabel's the head coach, because those are all three different offensive coordinators. And what bothers me is that I'm glad that Vrabel's looking at the defensive formation and the looks of the opposing team, obviously. And these are the plays that he comes up with to combat certain defensive looks. Are these the only types of plays that can work against this defensive look? I don't understand why that particular Okonkwo play is the only play that could work against that defense. And that's what they practice, because that's what he says after every game. Well, we practice this all throughout the week, this particular play, based on the look that they give. Because apparently the Giants didn't fall for it at all. I mean, there was like three or four defenders that didn't even care.
I give Lewan a hard time because he really didn't block anybody. But there were two or three other guys there as well.
Yeah.
And so, look, I'm not smart enough to tell you if Tannehill should have checked out of that or if he even has the ability to check out of that. I don't know.
Right.
But I know this. We saw the Titans run that type of play with Jonnu Smith. We saw the Titans run that play with Delaney Walker, and no one was complaining about it. We're just complaining about it because it didn't work.
That is a good point. That is the first time I've heard anybody actually make I think, a well thought out point and pointing to past success with different players under the Vrabel regime. So I have to give you kudos to that one. I haven't heard that one yet.
By the way, I saw Delaney Walker the other day. He looks like he can still play. I mean, it just looks unbelievable.
He's got to be better than Jeff Swain, which gets me into my next big thing about this whole thing.
Gosh.
Is this 45 snaps for a guy who supposedly is the best blocker on this team out of the tight ends. Which,
that was the highlight of the press conference.
Yeah, I mean, that had me dead. Like, here's what I think. Even if, and I don't believe it, even if he is better than Austin Hooper, then he's just marginally better. And what Austin Hooper gives you in the receiving game should make up for that little bit of maybe less blocking ability. And here's my thing. They built up you guys were at practice all offseason.
Yeah.
At these open practices, all you see is Tannehill hits Chig for a touchdown. Tannehill hits Austin Hooper for a touchdown. Never really, you saw Logan Woodside hit Jeff Swain, but you never really saw Tannehill hit Jeff Swain for a touchdown in the offseason. So they built up all this great chemistry to only allow Chig Okonkwo to go out there for 5 routes. That's all he did, 5 routes. Meanwhile, we got Jeff Swain out here running 15 routes, which is 75% of his past snaps. and he's getting targeted 4 times for 19 yards and average depth of target of 1 yard.
Four targets.
I'm done with the offense runs through Jeff Swaim thing that they got going on, and I'm done with the good old boys getting snaps.
Look, he got 4 targets. 4. That's as many as Robert Woods and Austin Hooper combined. That's criminal. That's criminal. I mean,
exactly. They should be in jail.
It's criminal. All right. It's criminal. Because, all right, let's go down the list. All right. I'm just going to read players to you. Chigakakwu, Kyle Phillips, Dontrell Hilliard, Trey Burks, Robert Woods, Nick Westbrook-Akine, Austin Hooper, Derrick Henry, and Jeff Swaim. Which one of those players would you rather have Jeff Swaim have the ball there?
All of them.
No, would you rather have Jeff Swaim have the ball than any of those guys?
No, sorry.
No, he's the last choice. He's the last choice. He's the slowest. He's the least coordinated. He's the least athletic. And I know I'm picking on the guy, and I'm sorry, but he's a millionaire, so he'll be okay.
Yeah.
And it's not his fault. He's living his dream. He's trying to do his job to his best ability. So, Jeff Swaim, I'm here for you, and I'm saying congratulations that this team loves you. We're just saying we don't understand. We don't understand. You run a tight end screen that goes for 9 yards that if you threw it to any other tight end on your roster, on their roster, on your practice squad or at McGavock High School would have gone for 15 to 20 yards. But, I mean, he looked like George Costanza weaving through traffic with the Frogger machine. He got 9 yards. 9. It should have gone for a lot more. The ball hit him in the face. In the face.
I just don't understand their obsession with this guy. And
he couldn't make the Jacksonville Jaguars roster.
It's insane that they have all this talent. It's like Cody Hollister getting 8 snaps. I understand that Cody Hollister had a really great play and he toe tapped it in. But when you have Treylon Burks who's getting, over 4 yards of separation, and it was way obvious missed pass interference call from probably taking one to the house and being over 100 yards receiving. Why are you giving snaps to Cody Hollister? Why is there a play where there's Cody Hollister, Jeff Swaim, and Derrick Henry as your main passing targets, and Derrick Henry is the one getting the ball who's just lollygagging out into the flats and not going deep enough into the route upfield for it to even work at all? Why is that a play? Like, I don't understand why this team thinks that just because you bring an apple to practice and give it to your coaches and you take your vitamins, say your prayers, and make your bed, that you should be on the field trying to make plays in a professional level. Jeff Swaim would be a borderline tight end 3 or borderline practice squad player on any other team in the NFL.
When you need a third tight end in a short yardage situation, 87 lumbers onto the field.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all he should be on there for.
Because okay, I gave Ben Arthur a high five after practice. I rolled down my window and I said, "Hey, I appreciate you asking the question." Because he asked, what he didn't say why is he tight end 1, but we all knew he got the most snaps. So he's tight end 1. Why? What has he done to warrant it? And he said, quote, "He's the best blocking tight end we have." Okay, so if he's the best blocking tight end you have, why does he have 4 targets?
Right.
And Austin Hooper has 2, and Chigakakwu has 1. By the way, on that 1 target, Chigakakwu made a hell of a play.
Yep.
That almost turned into a whole lot more. And look, I understand. There's understanding of the offense and understanding of assignments and trust. But I also understand athleticism and getting the ball to guys who can make plays. You brought up Treylon Burks. What do you get, 14 snaps? Was that the number?
13 receiving snaps is what I looked at. So he ran 13 routes.
5 targets. Okay, he got targeted over 30% of the time, which means Ryan Tannehill trusts him and looks for him because Tannehill doesn't just throw to anybody. And so when he was on the field, Tannehill was looking for him. All right. I think that's really important. And they need to get that big hog hunting dude on the field.
Well, it's like, okay, Chig apparently earned Ryan Tannehill's trust all through camp. They were putting Chig
Yeah.
in the first team offense, and Tannehill was hitting him and throwing it to him. At some point, talent has to supersede being at the right spot a millisecond quicker than everybody else, or whatever it is that they look at, thinking that, oh, well, Jeff Swaim, he's a real lunch pail guy. We can always count on Jeff Swaim to kind of get in someone's way and make it look like you're blocking. Yeah, I agree. You can't. Yeah, he's not even that great of a blocker. He's a below average blocker in 2021. He only did 5 pass blocks this game. So he's not out there to block on obvious passing situations. Then why is he even out there? I don't understand it.
I don't either. I don't.
Here's the thing about these rookies making mistakes and not being able to see the field more because they don't understand. This staff made a ton of mistakes in week 1, and I don't think they're reprimanding themselves by giving them less time to coach on the sidelines in week 2.
I think they're spending a lot more time in the office in week 2. So there might be some reprimand. Robert Woods got 2 targets. I mean, look, I know he's coming off the injury, but you traded for him for a reason. Get him the football. And I think that's my overwhelming takeaway from week 1 is not getting your dudes the football. And I was very excited to see 18 passes to 12 runs in the first half. I thought this was kind of the turn I was looking for, where they're emphasizing the passing offense a little bit more. But it was still heavy Derrick Henry on first down. And, even in the second half, you're waiting for the passing game to carry the load and to come up with pop plays. It's hard to come up with pop plays when you're not getting the ball to your pop players. You're not going to pop 60-yarders giving the ball to Jeff Swaim. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
I felt like this. I feel the same way because I feel like there's being this narrative spun by a couple of people who say that this Titans offense, and I think it's a little bit of A.J. Brown FOMO, but this Titans offense doesn't have playmakers. They don't have a guy that can make plays, and I totally disagree. They don't have a guy. They have many guys that can make plays. Robert Woods can make plays. Kyle Phillips shown that he can make plays. They did 5 explosive pass plays at a clip of probably 14 to 16% of their pass plays were explosive. That would have been more than number 1 at the end of 2021 season. That would have had him ranked first if they kept that clip, because San Francisco led the league in explosive pass plays at 11%. So Tim Kelly effect is here. It's alive. It's well. There's playmakers that can get yards after catch. There's playmakers that can get deep and get open deep and get you explosive plays. We saw it on the field. So this narrative that there is no playmakers on this team, they lack playmakers, is false. The problem is that this Titans offense lacks the ability or reasoning to try to target these guys. They would rather go to Jeff Swaim and Cody Hollister instead of trying to go to these guys. They'd rather Derrick Henry, get these runs where he's inefficient. I don't understand it. It should be pretty simple. You keep your guys on the field to give you the best chance to win, and this team refuses to do it. They have to I don't know if Jeff Swaim and Cody Hollister and some of these other guys throughout Vrabel's tenure has dirt on him or something. But I don't. It's a trend that they have where they overly rely on just your average Joe to do extraordinary things.
I like having guys who don't take no for an answer. All right. I like having guys who will do anything to make the football team. I do.
Yes.
I like the tone they sent. I like the example they set. And I don't mind having Cody Hollisters on the roster because they will do anything the coach says. But as you're talking about, that doesn't mean they have to be on the field on 1st and 20.
Right.
Now, he made the play. That's great. But at the end of the day, who's going to make more play? How often is somebody going to turn that 20 into 60 if it's Cody Hollister or if it's Treylon Burks? They both went to Arkansas, but they're not the same.
Well, let me say this. How many times, 10 out of 10, if you ran that play 10 times with Cody Hollister, how many times is he going to make that catch?
I don't know.
I think that was his one time.
Look, he practices. He's a big, strong dude. But again, there's a reason he started the year on the practice squad, right?
Right.
Okay. He wasn't on your 53. So again, Traylon couldn't have been tired. He didn't play enough. He wasn't tired. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't explain why he's one of your top four and he's not up there. I mean, and for the love of God, Nick Westbrook-Akine, the Titan favorite, the Ryan Tannehill favorite, he only got 2 targets.
And he was open. I will say this: Tannehill missed him twice, where he was open in Tannehill's field of vision, and he went to a triple covered Mason Kinsey and went to Traylon Burks in the end zone on 3rd down. NWI was right there running crosser routes, and he was open, and that's on Tannehill, but it doesn't mean. See, I think the thing is that Tim Kelly is scheming these guys open. The passing game works. Like it will work when you're not targeting Jeff Swaim 4 times a game. People are open when you gotta get the ball to your playmakers, that's where I'm at.
How many drops do they have?
4 drops.
Yeah, I know Swaim had one hit him in the face. Kyle Phillips
had one. Hilliard have one, and I think PFF is counting NWI with one.
Okay, what about Henry had the one on the side?
Oh yeah, maybe that's the 4th one. Then
that's the 4th one. That had no chance.
Yeah.
Look, I know Tannehill's not the topic here. I've seen a lot of people on social media telling everyone that they thought Tannehill looked really good. I thought he looked okay.
I thought he looked pretty good. I thought he looked comfortable. He was efficient. And was he targeting the right people on every play? No, it wasn't the most perfect Tannehill game, but I thought that he looked better than most games in 2021.
He didn't turn it over. He didn't look like he was close to turning it over. He didn't get sacked. So, there was that. When you go 3 for the 12 or 11 on 3rd
3 for 11 on 3rd downs,
it's tough to get a rhythm going.
Right.
And I think that's what I think was absent of. That rollout to Henry where he went to him too late. I didn't understand that.
And he could have ran it too.
Yeah, well, there was the 3rd and 2 where he rifled it at the feet of Nick.
Right.
Like 3 guys around him. I'm like, why didn't you run that one? And so there was just a few that were critical plays. I mean, they're 3rd down plays. And I'm like, you got to find a way to move the chains. And I thought there were times where they could have moved the chains better. They certainly could have finished drives better. But as we've talked about, you can do that if you get the ball to the guys who make plays.
Right. And another lunch pill kind of guy that I did like, but now I've fallen out of favor with, and he played 5 defensive snaps, and 2 of them were for scores, is Dylan Cole. And Dylan Cole is not a suitable red zone replacement for Harold Landry because he was out there in the Harold Landry role. And I don't know what made them think that was the move when you have probably 13, 14 other players that would have been better than Dylan Cole in that situation. I feel like I don't get that right there either.
Well, look, when you're down by the goal line, you're going to give up more scores. So I mean, he's in a position to give up scores. So I think that gets skewed a little bit. He was in position to make the stop on the 2-point play and didn't do it. I think that's another thing. Will Compton got 1 snap and won the game, right?
Yeah.
What game was that? Buffalo?
I think it was the Buffalo game.
Yeah, Will Compton gets 1 snap and wins the game. So Dylan Cole, you need more, but at the same time, you're supposed to have Monty Rice, and you don't. And I'm sure Cunningham and Long were both on the field for that.
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
Right?
So Braden tells me that in the defensive formation that he saw, that would normally have been Harold Landry. That's what he told me yesterday on the football show.
Harold Landry
at the same time.
He's a Pro Bowl football player. Okay?
Yeah, I just don't understand why it goes from Harold Landry to Dylan Cole. Like, shouldn't there be like some players in between that to get in the formation that are better? Like that's where I'm at.
Like Rashad Weaver, 4th round pick. Yeah, I get what you're saying. But again, Dylan Cole, he's a variable guy. Played in Houston. He's a guy he trusts. And what do they always say? You're expected to play at a starter level when you come in and play. So they expect him to do that, and he's done that. Didn't do it in this game. And again, and I'm not advocating that Dylan Cole is be all end all. It's 1 game. And for a lot of these guys, they didn't play in the preseason. And so there's a lot of stuff that just isn't perfect week 1. I mean, I watched the Broncos.
Oof, that was a rough game.
And there was a lot of week one there because I
Yeah.
mean, you talk about leaving meat on the bone. I mean, it was like that Fred Flintstone stack of ribs at the drive-in on the bone for the Broncos. I thought they should have had 30 points on the board.
Well, I don't understand. We'll veer off into this a little bit because this will take us into our next thing. Vrabel's into game play calling, but I don't understand why you trade 5 draft picks for Russell Wilson, give him the keys to your offense because apparently him and Nathaniel Hackett have collaborated on the playbook, and you take him out when you have all these timeouts and put your kicker on there who's 1 for 7 from that distance, the range of distance that he's in his career, and put him in, and then you see him miss the kick, and you're like, okay, well, we'll keep on going with the kick. There is something, and this is kind of like an inside joke or a theme of the show. I have this thing against Denver and its head coaches since 2017 due to fantasy football,
Okay.
and
Which is a perfectly good reason.
It is a perfectly good reason, but they make the weirdest calls when whatever coach goes there since 2017. The high altitude gets them and they make the weirdest calls because I don't understand that. Not only why did he not go ahead and call a timeout, put a pass play in, you have the time to do it instead of letting the clock run all the way down like they did, which was ridiculous. But why did you start calling timeouts when Seattle was kneeling it? Like, what was that? I don't understand what's going on.
The game was in Seattle, so altitude is not.
Well, he was exposed to it, in Denver for the off season.
I'm sure I'm wrong, but I think it's the worst head coaching debut I've ever seen. I mean, the worst.
I have to agree. Like, it has to be the worst.
You trade the ranch for Russell Wilson. He's your guy to get you to the Super Bowl, and you think your chances of kicking a 64-yard field goal on the road is better than Russell Wilson throwing for 5, running for 5, something for 5. If you didn't think Russell Wilson could get you 5 yards on one play, why the hell did you trade for him?
Yeah.
I mean, what on earth are you thinking? It's the worst decision I've ever seen. And if I was the GM and the owner, he would be in my office getting absolutely blistered up and down from me. They had a minute to play. Do you know how much can happen? I think 3 scores happened in the last minute of the Bills and Chiefs. They went up and down the field so fast. And you handcuffed a guy who's got a ring, who's been to another Super Bowl, and you traded the ranch for so you could kick the longest field goal in NFL history.
It just doesn't make sense. I still can't get over. Like, I thought the game was over, and because the Seahawks kneeled, and then I see them kneeling again. I wasn't really paying attention. I'm like, wait a minute, and he just called another timeout. Like, what is going on? Like, why?
You ever have those mistakes when you're in media and you do shows? I think they happen a lot more to people than who don't do shows that are out there for the world to see. Well, it went bad, and you lay in bed in the middle of the night, and you're just like, God, I don't want to open Twitter. Man, I don't want to wake up tomorrow. I just need these next 2 days to be over. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett, he had to be laying in bed last night. I don't even know if he slept. I mean, he had to be laying there just going, man, this week's going to be horrible. This week is going to be did I really do that? I mean, did I really do that? Look, I don't care who your kicker is. It's 64 yards. All right.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And that brings me to this Mike Vrabel. I feel that he
47 yards.
I get that's 47 yards, but that this kicker is kind of iffy.
Randy Bullock.
Yeah. Like, he's iffy on some points. And you didn't do him any favors with the sequence of events.
No,
they had the ball snapped and Vrabel called the timeout. And then
look, when you got the first down, and you got the ball out of bounds, and then you burn your timeout when the clock stopped.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. If you needed time, if you reasonably needed time to figure out where you wanted the football, hey, Ryan, go spike it on first down because we have 3 more plays after that.
Right.
Don't burn your time out. That's gold. That's like taking the gold in your pocket and looking at the ocean and going, here you go. We're going to chuck that sucker away. I mean, Mike Vrabel's an outstanding head coach who 99 times out of 100 has every situation down to a T. And I will just say, I thought they mishandled that one. And I'm guessing in the privacy of behind their doors, they are saying they mishandled that one. And I also don't agree with giving up 3 more yards to get the ball in the
Exactly.
hash. It's not a 25-yarder you're turning to a 28. It was 44 that you turned into 47. It was already long. It was already long.
And
you don't have one of the top 20 kickers in the league.
And my thing is people are like, well, that 3 yards is going to make a difference. Well, it's not just the 3 yards that he lost; it's the yards they lost they didn't gain by going forward. So it could have been, instead of 47,
42.
It could have been 42. It could have been 41. I mean, they had time where they could throw, and the pass plays to Kyle Phillips and him going out of bounds was working the whole way down the field. It's like when Foreman was running down the whole time down the field, down the Bengals' throat, and then they take him out, put in the Bengals, or they pass the ball. I can't remember which one it was. I tried to forget that game, but they went away from Foreman, which was working. Kyle Phillips was working all the way down the field. You have Robert Woods, you have Traylon Burks, you have Austin Hooper, you have Dontrell Hilliard, who astonishingly only played 12 snaps for whatever reason. Even in like 3 or 4 amazing plays, and they're like, oh, well, you only need to play 12 snaps.
What's the saying? No substitute for speed.
Right. And they just waste the 18 seconds that they could have had to get the ball closer for Randy Bullock. Instead, they're just like, oh, well, we're going to run this weird horizontal quarterback sneak that loses 3 yards just because he's got to have the right hash. The right hash wasn't far enough for him to make that kick.
No, they needed the right sideline.
Yeah.
And I felt bad for Randy Bullock, and I don't feel bad for kickers. It's their job.
Right.
It's their job. And it's his job to make that 47-yard field goal. It's Vrabel's job to put him in as good a position as he can to make the kick. And that's what we're arguing. Yes, he gave him the spot on the field that he wanted, but did he really do Randy Bullock the most favors when he could have done a little bit more? But it is absolutely 100% his job to hit that kick. And I feel bad for him from this aspect. He was murdering the ball in the preseason. I mean, exactly. Absolutely right. But I got news for you. It's not the preseason. Now is when it all counts. And a preseason kick is not the same as a regular season kick because the guy knows there's nothing on the line and he had no competition. So there's no pressure on him whatsoever because the rookie's hurt. And by the way, before he got hurt, I love that rookie kicker.
Yeah, the rookie was looking great. And it's like when they feel they look at the kicking situation. When someone goes down with injury, they're like, we'll just stick with Randy. No sense of bringing anybody else in to compete with them. We'll just stick with Randy here. And that's all great and good, but you got to understand your players' limitations. And I feel like for the most part, Vrabel does a good job of that, but he did a major disservice to Randy Bullock, who still should have made the kick. But let's be honest here. There isn't a kicker that can kick a 47-yard kick in the win and make it 100% of the time.
No.
But that's why you have to put your kickers in the best position. And the best position is always to have positive yards, not negative yards. Move them forward. Don't move them back.
Better.
Closer is better.
Closer is better.
I feel like the Titans have this problem, Corey, where they let their foot off the gas and aren't aggressively attacking. And I think that goes back to the philosophy of Mike Vrabel, where he has his philosophy where he's a defensive-minded head coach. He gets a little conservative, and I think he'd rather win games 13-10 as long as everybody played and executed well. But when you're in games where the margin of error is so thin because you play that way, and I go to the Vikings, and Mike Zimmer, who was recently fired, was of the same mind. Now, let me be clear. Mike Vrabel is a player's coach and a much better head coach than Mike Zimmer ever was a head coach. There is no comparison. They're in different stratospheres, but they have this same philosophy. And the Vikings recently switched to Kevin O'Connell as head coach. And here's what they beat the Packers 23-7. And it was pretty much out of hand right out of the gate. And this is what Adam Thielen said after the game. in the locker room, he said, I've never been part of an offense that just was attacking and attacking and attacking. It didn't matter the score. It didn't matter the situation. We were attacking. It felt good.
Yeah.
I need that mindset for this Tennessee Titans team in 2022. Am I going to be sorely disappointed?
Probably. But I agree with you. And it's a little surprising because I remember a 59-0 shellacking in the snow in New England when the Patriots could have left at halftime and won the game. And they came out and kept firing. And that's why I've always been surprised because which game always stands out to me from this aspect is the Atlanta Falcons game in 2019. And the Titans went up like 24-0 or whatever. But I mean, they had a chance to really put that game away. And I really thought they took their foot off the gas that day. And I did not understand it for the life of me. I mean, I can't remember what the certain scenario was in that game, but they had a chance to just really give it to them, and they didn't. And so, look, I think the players can see when you take your foot off the gas, and you get that feeling of kind of trying to hang on for the win, and that never really seems to work. I mean, you just, you got to keep blitzing if that's what you do. You got to keep taking shots. All right, you beat people until they surrender. I think that's my philosophy. Until you see them give up, you've got to drop the hammer on them. But we'll see. And maybe it's a trust issue. Maybe it's something that gets built as the season goes along. To say, okay, we can go after these guys. We don't have to play it safe. But I'm with you. I'm not about playing it safe. I'm about going for the kill shot.
Well, you look at that. You bring up that Falcons game. They were up 24-7 at halftime, and they didn't score the rest of the way. For the whole second half, they didn't even try to score anything. And you know what's funny is that there are teams who never let up on the Tennessee Titans. You talk about the snow game in New England. Yeah. Don't forget the snow game in Green Bay just was last season or 2 seasons ago, where they just trounced all over Tennessee then as well. Other teams don't give you that benefit of the doubt. I don't understand why at 13-0 you go back and come out of the half in that point and start going conservative all over again. When what was working was your passing game. And what you saw in the second quarter, because I went back and watched the game, when you see it in the second quarter, you see the run defense start giving up these little chunk plays. 4 yards to Saquon Barkley here, 4 yards to Saquon Barkley there. Little chunk plays. You just kind of could see the crack being hammered at against the wall, where they're going to get a big run and get a big play off the run game. And sure enough, in the second half, that's what they do. And they were able to stick with the run game because the Titans stuck with their run game. And so at some point, the conservative approach where, okay, well, we'll just keep, sticking with our game plan. We won't adjust because our game plan's perfect, doesn't get you a win every week. It gets you a lot of wins. It's specifically Vrabel's way of doing it. It gets you a lot of wins, but everything has to go in your favor. You have to get a couple defensive touchdowns to even get, 30 or 40 points in some of these games. I mean, that's the thing with me is that this team needs to get this attacking mentality going to be able to make deep runs into the playoff instead of solely relying on Derrick Henry.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, you've got to go after it. You've got to go after it. And I do want to say this before we're done today. For all the bemoaning that we've heard about Todd Downing this week, the Titans gave up over 200 yards rushing, and Todd Downing didn't have a darn thing to do about it. Yep. I don't care who your offensive coordinator is. You give up 200 yards rushing, you're going to lose, or you deserve to lose. So the Titans have been ahead by more and taken the ball out of Saquon Barkley's hands. That's an argument that you can make, but you certainly cannot give up 200 yards on the ground. The two sides have to work together. They have to help each other out. And part of that is continuing to put the pressure on the other team.
I completely agree. I thought after the game, I said in our group chat, I said, I don't think that Shane Bowen's really getting enough pressure for his performance in that game, for his team's performance, because I thought the run fits were poor. And I don't know. that could be a player execution problem, but that's something you got to correct in mid-game instead of letting them continue to make the same mistakes. If these players are making mistakes, you got to coach them up and show them on your little Microsoft Surface or iPad or whatever you got. Hey, look, you took a wrong angle here. Because Amani Hooker, for all the good that he did, he played really well in coverage. He was taking wrong angles on the runs. I thought Christian Fulton was missing some stuff. I think Zach Cunningham and Bud Dupree both got washed away because, a lot of people say,
all those guys have in common, Zach?
Ooh, probably slender, more athletic guys.
No, none of them played. None of them played in the preseason.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, that's another thing I think I'm with you on is that I think quarterbacks went
3-8.
3-8. Yeah. 3-8 for if they didn't play in the preseason. And I think what you see is Denver rested all their starters. Tennessee similarly did the same thing. There were a few starters that played.
The Rams.
You have to, at this point, when you have new pieces, your team needs to practice in preseason or play in preseason. Whether it's just a game or a couple of drives, you have to get it out there because Derrick Henry, he has to get over the mental aspect of last year's injury and the lingering maybe concerns for health that he may have in the back of his head and get hit a couple of times to get used to it before the regular season game.
And I know the argument to be made is I'd rather struggle out of the gate than lose one of these guys for the year in a meaningless game. And I get that. I mean, if you're willing to make that trade-off, then they're willing to make that trade-off. That's just It's just that simple. And so you're willing to accept, hey, because I mean, we had the same thing last year and they got bombed on opening day. So maybe this is just if this is the way the Titans are going to do it, we just have to know on the opening day it's probably not going to be perfect. Because I asked 6 guys last week about this. How do you trust your fundamentals when you haven't played? I mean, because you can practice all you want. Zach, they aren't hitting out there in the practice field and taking each other to the ground.
Right.
They go up there, they connect, and they move on. It's not the same thing. And it's really not the same thing when it's Saquon Barkley. Okay.
Right.
And so all of a sudden the game's on the line. It's a 2-point conversion. You got 2 guys there, and they're grabbing at air because it's all moving way faster, way stronger than it does in practice. And I know you try to practice like you play, and that's why they put such an emphasis on it. And largely they do an unbelievable job. But I know everybody knows when the lights go on, there is another gear for all of those guys.
Yep.
All of those guys. And so I think I'm not advocating they all play a ton of football, but I am advocating they all play some.
Yeah.
Because I think they need to get out there. I mean, Kevin Byard said, he'll do whatever they tell him, but like he played some in the preseason last year, and he said he liked that. He liked getting a few hits in, getting a few tackles in. Said he felt more ready for the season. That's just one guy.
Well, I mean, if you look at what the Bills did, the Bills played some of their starters. The Chiefs played some of their starters. And
they look pretty good.
They both looked really good. I think there's something to this thing. It's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers spent all offseason complaining about his wide receivers not knowing what to do.
Because
he's
terrible.
Not playing in preseason.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they don't have – whether he plays in the preseason or not, when you treat the wide receiver position like the Titans treat kicker, it's not going to go well, okay? Yeah. And so that I don't know if all the practice in the world was going to help Aaron Rodgers there when they just grabbed 6 guys off the street to come in and play wide receiver for him.
I think the final thing that I guess I would have is, do you feel a little bit better after being able to come onto the show and let out a little energy? Do you feel a little bit better about going forward? Is it the weight off your chest?
I'm 51 years old. I've been watching the National Football League for a long time. All right. And everybody, sky was falling and the Titans season's over. I'm reading Twitter. They're going to lose by 40 to the Buffalo Bills. My message was simple Monday when I came to News 2 and I was writing my stories. We have been here before.
Right.
All right. The Titans and everybody else has lost games before. They've lost games they're not supposed to before. And guess what? Usually they bounce back really, really well. As we said, it's week 1. I'm not going to overblow things. Also consider this. Zach, how many people picked the Chicago Bears to beat the Super Bowl favorite San Francisco 49ers?
Oh,
No one?
zero.
No one? All right. How many people picked Mitch Trubisky to outduel Joe Burrows in the Natty? No one. How many people picked Geno Smith to go 17 of 18 in the first half and beat Russell Wilson? No one. It's the NFL. They're all good. No matter how bad we say people are, they're all good, or they wouldn't be there. Everybody wins, everybody loses. Some of them do it more often than others. So, look, they hurt. There's no question about that. But understand this, the last team to go undefeated happened over 40, almost 50 years ago. There's a reason for it. This league is hard. You're going to lose games. The key is not letting one turn into two. You cannot overreact to one game. And so I'm not saying I didn't care, but man, it happens. Let's see what happens next week. If there's more stuff, like if I see more Jeff Swaim out targeting Robert Woods and Austin Hooper next week, then we've got a problem. Then we've got a philosophical problem that they did not adjust from. But I'm not going to overreact to one game that they should have won by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's crazy. To me, I put this out on Twitter and I said, okay, bad news, they lost the game. The good news is that this sets them up perfectly to beat the Bills by double-digit points, because that's just what the Titans do. And I just kind of believe in this philosophy of when the game was over, I kind of felt like I was the Jets game. I'm kind of numb to losses. Like this kind of loss, okay, I'm not really too surprised. I thought it was going to be a close game, but I thought it would go to the Titans' way. But it just didn't go the Titans' way, and now they're going to face the Bills, and this is what they're going to do. They're going to come out, and they're probably going to win 21-10 or something like that. And and everybody's going to be like, "What the hell happened?" And it's just what the Titans. That's just how they've been for these last few years.
You're never as good as you are on your best day, never as bad as your worst. And that's just my way of saying the Titans are somewhere above what we saw Sunday, and the Buffalo Bills, by the way, who won easily. They weren't perfect. All right.
No.
I mean, they turned it over 3 or 4 times. They played a Rams team that just turned it in a dirt pile performance. All right. I mean, was awful. And that's not taking anything away from the Bills. They are the Super Bowl favorite, and I think they absolutely should be.
Right.
Although they're not my pick, but they absolutely should be. Look, the Titans can go there and win. There's no doubt about it. They can go there and lose by 3 touchdowns because you know what? The Bills can do that to any team in the NFL. And so if the Titans go and lose by 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, guess what? The season still isn't over. You got 15 weeks to go, and they're in the worst division in the league. The division was so bad it couldn't even beat itself.
There's not even a win in the win column. There's not even a 1 in the win column for any of these teams. What a bad display of football for the AFC South. I mean, it has to be easily the worst division, right? I mean, there can't be one worse.
The Giants at home, that's bad. But then the Jags lose to Carson Wentz. I mean,
Trevor Lawrence looked pitiful. He looked so bad.
And then the Colts were down 20-3 to the worst run organization in the league and had to rally. And so the Colts rise to first place on the strength of a tie. And I don't know if anybody saw this, and this is not this show, so I apologize, but we talk about coaching malpractice. I'm a big Lovie Smith fan. I've liked Lovie for a long time. I thought he did a great job with the Chicago Bears and should have never been fired for going 10-6 and missing the playoffs.
Right.
That was stupid. It was stupid. They're my team, and that was stupid. But 3rd and 4 from midfield with 30 seconds to play in overtime, and they ran the football and punted. Look, you're not going to the playoffs, Lovie. You're not. Teach your guys to win. Go win the game. It was right up there with Pat Dye's tie. It was horrible. It was horrible. I guess we see bad plays from players in week 1. We had some unbelievable decisions by coaches in week 1.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, that will do it for us. So thanks for coming on and being a guest 2 weeks in a row. That's a first for the podcast, having a
You
guest
were
on 2 weeks in
desperate.
a row.
You
I
were
was.
desperate.
I'm always desperate for good content. So thanks for coming on, Cory. Remind everybody, just in case they missed you last week, where they can see your face.
I'm on News 2, Sunday through Thursday. You can also find me on Twitter at Cory Curtis 2 and on Facebook, WKRN Cory Curtis.
Well, that will do it for Football and Other F Words. My name is Zach Lyons. You can follow me on Twitter at FWordsPod. And just a reminder, I'm part of the Broadway Sports Media network of podcasts and the 440 Sports network of podcasts. I'm a hot commodity. I kind of go swing both ways there for the podcast world. And you can find all kinds of great content at 440 Sports. They have hockey podcasts, Nashville soccer podcasts. They have SEC podcasts. They have all kinds of content over there. And over at Broadway Sports, we have some great football podcasts going. So I'm going to remind you, do not miss the Music City Audible now is 2 shows a week. A Music City Audible with Justin Mello and Justin Graver. Second in Victory with Austin Nelson, Brett Batchelor, and Chris Carter. And of course, the Mike Herndon Show are all on Thursday. And reminder, the only way you can listen to the Mike Herndon Show starring Mike Herndon with Mike Herndon is to get an insider pass to listen. So you have to be able to have that to get in there. Those all drop on Thursday because this drops on Wednesday. So that's tomorrow. For Cory Curtis, my name is Zach Lyons. This has been Football and Other F Words, and you have just been effed.
A Broadway Sports Media production.